Safety is of utmost importance in cases of emergencies, like health crisis. But this should not impede learning. Students should be allowed to continue learning in the safety of their homes. Vibal brings you the Smart Homeschool Kit. The Smart Homeschool Kit offers complete tools for a homeschool setup while encouraging collaboration between teachers and parents. This kit contains the following. First, Smart Wizard. These workbooks provide age-appropriate supplementary activity sheets to challenge learners' understanding of the lessons and help them put their learnings into practice. A teacher's guide that serves as a manual for monitoring the learning progress of students at home is also available in the kit. This kit also contains a parent's guide to assist parents in guiding their children while learning at home. Daily lessons are made available in Smart Class. Aside from lessons, these books feature performance tasks aligned with DepEd's K-12 curriculum, good for an entire school year. And to monitor students' learning progression at home, Smart Homeschool Kit also features vSmart HMS, an online monitoring system designed for homeschool learning with features including assignment of lessons and tasks to students and tracking of learners' progress through analytics. Get the Smart Homeschool Kit today. Email marketing@vibalgroup.com for more details.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Learn at Home series for this evening. For today's discussion, our topic would be on thoughtful assessments in the new normal, approaches and strategies for formative and summative assessments. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your questions on the comment box allotted during the session and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our Vibal webinars. Experience learning ka Vibal. And now, to proceed with our session this evening, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker. She is currently affiliated with Dr. Yanga College Incorporated as the Director of Basic Education and as Vice Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Miss Flor de Liza L. Macalinao.
Good evening to everyone. It's my pleasure to once again be invited by Dival to at least help us out with some of our preparations in this coming school year. I was briefed earlier that most of our audience are parents and a few are faculties and administrators of school. So I find it important that I share some of the insights on assessment approaches that might help us in our preparation for this school year. So before we begin our this evening's webinar, I'd like first everyone to be invited for at least a very short prayer so that our um, webinar will be blessed. To the believers, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, Amen. Heavenly Father, may this important gathering tonight be a source of enlightenment for us as we prepare for the new normal of education. We entrust everything to you, to your protection, as we face this pandemic. May you be the fount of strength and wisdom to every one of us. We ask this in Jesus' name, Amen. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to our dear parents. Hopefully, this evening's webinar will enlighten you on some approaches schools may adopt in this coming school year. Also to our teachers who are still energetic attending webinars this late or this evening. I believe most has attended already webinars from morning until now. So hopefully you still have the energy to be with us in for 1 hour. So let's sit back and let's be engaged in our discussion this evening. So today, this evening's talk will focus on these 4 points. Okay. So first, we'll talk about what's to be measured in this time of pandemic. What type of assessment and what's essential to be measured in terms of learning of our students. Also, the second point will be how to be a thoughtful designer of assessment. It's actually easy to design assessments and evaluations for students. But what's apt in this current situation we're in, and how we can get more opportunities so that our students will be able to at least get to be excited despite of the difficulty that we are facing right now. So at least learning will still be enjoyable, and that assessment wouldn't be something to be dreaded by our learners despite what's currently happening. So third point will be looking into some formative assessments that we may adopt in distance learning, in our blended learning. Also, the most important, actually, it's as important as formative. We do have the summative assessment also in distance learning. So I'm very limited. Their parents, their faculty, their administrators of school, I may only give insights and points which we can use and at least help us creatively designing our assessments for our students. So to begin with, we really have to measure what's only essential to be measured in this time. Most schools will are actually afraid that students might be creative, okay, in getting grades through cheating. We know for a fact that in the normal classroom, cheating happens. Okay, so there's this one particular article written by Vanni entitled "How We Drive Students to Cheat." So this is addressed to us, teachers, how we drive students to cheat. Instead of bemoaning the fact, according to him, that students cheat, we need to ask how our instructional practices may be encouraging them to do it. Okay, so unknowingly, as teachers, we may be the driving force also for our students to cheat. There's this one particular scenario in Vanni's book, which actually is very reflective and would allow us to realize that we really have to be a thoughtful designers of assessment. Okay, and the story goes like this. This has been narrated by by Chris in his book. The mom said, which is a friend of the author, how did your US, because this is, he's a foreign author, of course, how did your US history test go today? The mom asked. The son replied, I think I did really well. I felt like I got almost everything right. But the good thing was that I sat next to Anthony. Miss Mandry gave us two different tests, but I was able to figure out her pattern. And then I got about 10 answers of Anthony. And I mostly had them right anyway, but that definitely helped. The conversation goes on. The mom replied, I'm not so sure I want you to be telling me about how well you did because you cheated off Anthony. I'd rather you do well because you know the material. The son replied, but I mostly did well on my own, and you don't know how many different skills I had to use to figure out that. Like number 37 on my test was number 13 on Anthony's test. I had to use deductive reasoning and finding pattern and all kinds of really important skills. I think you should be proud of me. If this is a kind of reply the son will give to a mother who's asking how well did you do in your exam, I think um, it goes back to saying that the child really has been skillful cheating, has been very skillful cheating, or devising strategies by which he will be able to get the correct answers off from another student. You see, he was very proud saying that he was able to use his deductive reasoning and that he knows what order, even through sets of tests, he was able to tell on which item the question is on his own paper to that of his classmates. So what does this tells us in this time of pandemic? When what has to be measured is something that is um, usually easy when we do it in the classroom, and now when the students are having blended learning at homes, how do we know that they learn, and how do we get them realize the importance of academic integrity and academic honesty, okay, in giving feedback on their learning. So it boils down, the author says that it boils down on how we educators are teaching. Okay? Nakakalungkot, pero if we'll look at it, we might, in our practice, we might really be the motivators for our students to really be engaged to cheating. We might have been training them in becoming good cheaters. Okay, so creativity has to emanate from the teacher, and so how do we address this concern? So by being a thoughtful assessor, okay, of our students' learner, we might eliminate, or we might at least limit, okay, the chances of having our students be formed into a kind of skilled person in things that are not right. I don't think any educators will like the idea that their students are getting better on something that is not good. Okay, so that's the reason why really we have to be a thoughtful assessors of our students learning. Okay, and how do we do that? First, we have to recognize the diversity of our learners. We have been attending so many seminars. Has been so many meetings already done by different institutions in their own respective schools. We have been devising different modalities, yes, materials that we need for the blended learning. But the question is, how do we assess students, especially now that there are students who go offline, There are students who will do full online learning, and there are those who will have to use both materials for offline and online. Remember that there has to be no demarcation line between this situation, because only the students knows, or they are the ones in their learning environment knows what kind of learner will they be at a particular time. They may have internet connection now. Tomorrow they may be these students might already be an offline learner because of less connectivity in the internet. So what I'm trying to say is, as early as now, even in the preparation for assessment, we have to consider this situation, or this group of students, those who are capable to take online assessments, um, those who are considered as offline learners, and that there may be instances that they may be required to give an evidence of their learning in the form of writing, in the form of an audio material. Okay, so we have to recognize that as educators. Secondly, we have to be flexible. Okay, so by flexibility, I mean our assessment has to cater, okay, the diverse needs of our student. Differentiated assessment can still be done, okay, through distance education, and that is by considering the interests of our students. Okay, so for example, in a certain assessment, you can give options by which the students can choose from depending on what's their learning conditions at home. So it has to really be that flexible. Our assessment should be that flexible. Thirdly, we have to be empathic. Remember that the kind of situations in the room or in the classroom is different from the type of assessment we'll give them when they are at home. So let's be empathic. I believe those some of our teachers, especially those who are newly graduate, they like to do things by the book. Okay, so we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the students. How will they feel if they are asked to do this? If they're asked to do that, will they be able to really present an evidence of their learning? So we have to think that. Fourthly, a thoughtful designer of an assessment has to be focused. DepEd has already released the MELCs, okay? And each topic or each learning area has has only included important competencies that has to be learned by the student. If during the past we keep on adding more competencies, okay, because we find it important, but in this time of crisis, I think what is important is we focus on what should only be assessed. Okay, the assessment has to be concentrated on what's only essential. Okay, and I think the MELC that's the purpose of the MELC. It has presented to us educators what skills, what understanding, okay, what aspect of understanding has to be learned by our student. And so we focus on that, okay? And the fifth and final, I think, from my point of view, of course, is an educator who is a thoughtful designer of an assessment has to be innovative. Back in the classroom, we do assessments by asking the students to do quarterly exams, okay, perform performance tasks, do formative assessments whenever we get to do talk with our students and engage them in collaborative activities. Now, I think most of those activities can be also be put to into the current situation, but on a different image and perspective. So we can make things enjoyable for the students by being innovative with the type of assessments we give them. So the students wouldn't feel that they are just being tested. Okay. So some students are actually fearing going to school, attending school, and attending classes because they know that after or during the period by which they will have their class, they will be assessed. But that shouldn't be that way. We have to make the students feel, especially in their conditions at home, that they are being assessed without them knowing it. Okay, and that the kind of answers they give will will give us feedback on how much they have been learning. Okay, so that we can better help them progress into more I think deeper and deeper part of the learning. Okay, so let's go into the formative assessment at a distance. It's really challenging. Okay, we'll go into summative assessment later because I think it's important that before we assess students through summative assessment, what's very important is to have the students be engaged in formative assessment. It's really challenging. I'm admitting that with our preparation, with the institution I belong to, Dr. Young's colleges, I'd like to share this. The president, the the deans, the vice principal, the principal are having already difficult time putting things together into our mind and actually preparing for the execution of these plans. Okay, so it's really very challenging. So imagine you have to prepare materials for different modalities. And on top of that is the most important, how do we assess the students? Okay, so it's challenging, yes, but possible. Okay, it's still possible. And I think it will provide many opportunities for us educators also to um, be creative, be resourceful, um, be innovative of thinking of ways on how we can help the students be assessed on terms of their learning, even if they are in the safety of their homes. Okay, and I think it's always an essential part, okay, of teaching and learning. So it provides us meaningful feedback on where the students are already. Okay, so we cannot remove formative assessment from the teaching and learning process that will happen for the next school year. Okay. However, we can be creative in presenting these formative assessments to our students. Okay. First point in designing formative assessment at a distance, we have to know the purpose of doing the assessment. What's significant? Um, what's important to be assessed? Okay, are you? I'm talking now to the teachers. Are you? Um, is it actually to give feedback on what the students' knowledge is? Is it to give feedback on the process that they have to understand? Or is it to give feedback on what the students understand? Okay, so I think the level of knowledge, assessing students by knowing only what the students has to know would be very superficial at this point in time. Okay, so it though students has to learn in their homes, it has to be an opportunity as well for them to at least find deeper meaning on what they're doing. Okay, in the difficulty of the situation, find meaning on those. So going beyond knowledge would be very important. Okay, what's dangerous in us creating assessments in the traditional way is that we've been giving questions, we've been giving assessment that only measures the knowledge. And so what do the students do? They tend to be creative, finding strategies on how they can get answers from a fellow student. And now it's easier in this time of pandemic. How would we know that when they're taking the assessment, they're not using their phones or they're not using their browser to find the answer in the internet? So we have to know the purpose in doing the assessment. Would we like to know what the students can do from the knowledge they get from their learning? Which I think is more important. Now that they learn these things, these concepts and everything, then what can they do from that? Okay? So that's more important than just giving and focusing assessment into measuring only knowledge. Okay? Not that I'm saying that's not important, but we focus on what's more important. Okay? Also concentrate on the feedback. You do not grade formative assessment, but as you ask and do your classes, their fellow educators, on answers being given to you by students, especially if you are doing synchronous learning via different platforms already available in the internet. Answers being given by the students can give us reliable information on where are they already on in terms of their learning. So we have to listen to those silent answers of our student. They may be giving the answer not verbally or orally, but even taking a particular item on your choices, say flashed on Zoom in terms of a poll, would be a good indicator of if they are at pace with the rest of the students with you during the synchronous learning. Also, one point to be considered in formative assessment is to gather evidence of students' learning. There are different ways on how we can gather proofs of our students' learning. One basic that we can ask from them is to send photos of their progress. Okay, so this you can do. Okay, this the students can do even with limited connectivity. Okay, so say for example you're a science teacher. Okay, and you'd like to know how well the students are doing, for example, in um, getting the resultant of particular sets of vector, and then you ask them to draw it through chalk on the ground, and then they take picture of that. I think as simple as that can be a good evidence of um, students learning already, and it wouldn't require um, so much data in the part of the students. So that may be possible. Also, students may submit videos of their reflection. Reflections being required by teachers are important. Okay, um, they may not be able to give concretely, okay, what they have learned, but they will be able to say how they can apply things on from which they have learned from your lesson. So I think taking video photos of take videos and photos of their progress in doing things at home will be basically something that everyone can do now, especially that most has cellular phones. Okay, but still there are those with no cellular phones, right? So at least for those a few, we can give this as an option. Okay, as an option again for them to be able to show evidence of their learnings. Okay. Also, formative assessment has to be consistently checked for students' understanding in synchronization. Um, I think most schools are already in partnership with different institutions and providers of learning management system. And most of them offers variety of features, of course. Now, if we really have to tap what's important in our institution, okay? So if you do synchronous session, there are a lot of things we can do to check on students' understanding, okay? Time and time, as we present the lesson to the students, there are many applications which we can integrate with our presentation of the lesson so that it can be more engaging to the students. There's this particular, I just would like to share that there's this one particular learning management system which we will be using, which has been sharing to us a variety of ways on how we can integrate applications into that LMS. But there's this particular application. I don't know if what LMS it is connected. The application is called as Play Post It. Okay, Play Post It. So it's a video player that stops at an instant, okay, and then presents to the student a question to check for students' understanding. They can only proceed with the video only if they have already answered that item in the formative assessment. And the application can already explain to to the student. It can already tell the students if the answer to that particular question is correct or not. So there's an instant giving of feedback already to the student. Okay, and then once answered, the video goes on and stops again. And this has to be designed by the teacher. It's only an application where one can utilize. And that's only one of the many applications available that we can use in order to check the students' understanding, especially when we do synchronous session. If you've been attending seminars, I know that most of them are via Zoom. Um, you can actually create polls, okay, and make them into questions, okay, that is related to the topic you're discussing, and you can easily pop it into your screen and have the students answer as you do your synchronous learning. And you'll be able to tell as well how much percent, just like in the webinars you are attending, it can already tell you on what percent of the group are already learning from your lesson. Okay, so there are a lot of this application. Another is the Mentimeter. Okay, Mentimeter. It's an international known application as well, which can also utilize for free for limited access, where you can ask students to answer right away in Flash their answers and see, okay, who gets the correct answer or not. So you can make the situations fun, especially if you do synchronous learning. So we really have to be creative and tap these tools in order to have our lessons more engaging for our students. This is another point that we have to consider in doing formative assessment, and that's taking advantage of personal conversations. When we get to talk to the students, whether that's through synchronous learning or through um, calling them through phones, okay, or talking to them in groups, will be very advantageous because how they how they express what they know is important. Okay, some schools in the US, when they have pursued with their education during this pandemic, has resulted into giving um, oral oral assessments. Okay, so what they do is they get to schedule their students, but this can be a summative assessment. However, when you do it with a group and as if you're just doing a dialogue and a conversation, you'll be able to get so many things already from the students and take note of where they are already in the phase of their learning. Formative assessment has to help us adjust instruction. Okay, and we have to usefully uh, make them be part of our teaching and learning process, sticking or staying true to social and emotional learning. Today's time wouldn't just require us teachers to only um, form the mind. Okay, in this time we also have to make the students feel, despite of the distance, the personal connections we have with them. Okay, so this is difficult. This period is difficult, but we have to adjust instruction and be true in stay true to social and emotional learning of our students. It's not only an avenue for us to learn what they know, what they can do, but also know their emotional state, especially at this condition, so that we will be able to adjust as well the kind of teaching we will have in the next coming days. Okay, and we're going into the important part of giving summative assessment. If formative assessment is very important, summative assessment is important because we might be assessing the students wrongly. Okay, and that may create more problems than good. Okay, so the reason why in the earlier part of my presentation, I have presented that a thoughtful assessor of learning of student has to be empathic. Okay, we really have to be empathic. So summative assessment at a distance has to be accurate assessment of learning. Okay, even when we're not yet in this period, summative assessment has to really give evidence to what the student has to learn, and it's very essential. Okay, what more is challenging is that we are in this current state, so this is still very vital. So first thing that we have to consider, okay, is to teach our students academic honesty. I think when we start classes and when we get to orient our students in the next coming weeks, or yes, before the start of the school year, what's important is we help students understand the importance of academic honesty. Okay, that way, as we implement with our blended learning, with our distance education, we are assured at least that our students, majority of them, would understand how important it is to express their learning in a way that they have given concrete evidences of their own learning and not obtained from their efforts of reading, of listening, okay, and not from getting it or copying it from sources or from internet, or even exchanging answers from one another. However, part of teaching academic honesty will also is to trust the students. Okay, as we present to the students the importance of academic honesty, okay, we also have to make the students feel that they are trusted when they are given assessment. Okay. And how can we trust the students? Of course, we have to trust our students because whatever they know, values they know, would be coming from, partly will be coming from us, their teachers. So we have to assess them in ways that is positive. Okay. Testing as a term should not connote something that is negative. Okay, assessment should be something, or testing should be something the students would know that what they are good at is what will be revealed. Okay, what they are good at will be something that will be revealed in the assessment that they will do. Okay. Also, we have to assess only what is needed to be assessed, and this I have explained earlier. Of the majority of the many things the student has to learn for a quarter, for a semester, for a school year. Okay, with the current condition, we have to really concentrate what is important to be assessed only. Okay, and as I've shared earlier, for me, what's important is what the students can do from the knowledge they get, from the skills they get, what they can do from that. Okay, so assess what is needed to be assessed, and our basis will still be the MELCs that has been provided to us by the Department of Education. Okay. Pardon me for the movement of text. Adjust assessments into more performance based. Okay, we yes, the performance task are has to be supposed to be really be evidence of students' performance. But as we design performance-based assessment, we have to be guided on the limitations as well of materials students have in their homes. Okay, we have to consider them. What do the students need in performing this performance? Will it be available for the students? Will my student be able to get these materials he needs for my performance-based assessment in their homes, or they will have to go somewhere else to find these materials only to present a product, okay, a process. Not that I'm saying that it's difficult. Yes, it's difficult, but we really have to be creative, thinking what the students can use in presenting their performance-based assessment based on available materials available in their homes. Okay. Cascade performance from bigger tasks into smaller tasks. Okay. So as we go about the start of the school year, I think what's important is we get the performance by chunks. Okay. And we do not overwhelm the students with tasks which they have to perform, which might overwhelm them and might make them be discouraged, okay, to continue learning. Okay, so what am I saying is we give the students, be given with small tasks that collectively, okay, can be a full evidence of what they learned for a particular quarter. So it shouldn't be so should it this will ease the burden. Okay, this will ease the burden from our students, and will gain also confidence from the parents that their sons and daughters are doing small things, and that at the end they will be measured collectively from what they have performed over the duration of a quarter, or of the semester, or of the school year. So we have to offer that opportunity for the students to be given with small tasks but relevant tasks, and that collectively, when put together, will be a good evidence of their learning. Next is for us to take advantage of tools in technology. You see earlier in my presentation, the situation of the mom and the son in the story is in a traditional assessment that happens in classroom. Okay, so where teachers get to prepare exams in sets. Okay, so still students get to be creative and get to be skilled. Okay, and use those skills in in a bad way. Okay, so might as well think of how we can leverage the use of tools, okay, available, okay, that we can make use in summative assessments. Okay, so I believe LMS, different LMS are offering automated assessments in terms of giving exams, and that checking um, will be made possible through the randomizers of different LMS. Options are randomized, numbers are randomized. Okay, however, it's the question that we'll have to concentrate on. Okay, concentrate on assessment questions that would measure what the deeper learning of the students. There are a lot of tools available. Some of them are for free. Okay, and I think there's always this um, negative side in the use of a particular application or tool. Okay, but what's important is we try to use them, and we try to make a process so that we can limit dishonesty in students providing answers for the kind of assessment we're giving. So there are so many available tools. The question is, how do we creatively offer it to our students? Okay, so it's important as well that we teachers, educators, will be able to make the most out of these tools, and think of ways on how we can limit dishonesty by providing our students with good questions. Questions that, or assessment questions that measures not on a level of knowledge, but on a much deeper understanding of the lessons. On this will be, I think, the last part of my presentation for the assessment. The assessment is important, yes, but what are we prioritizing when we assess? Let me repeat. Assessment is important in any teaching and learning experience. But what's the priority now? Okay, what's the priority now in giving assessment? Studies has been saying, okay, that of course the foremost priority is the student's wellness and condition. Learning comes next, and assessment comes last. Grading, giving grade, has to come last in our priority in giving assessment. It's for us to get feedback on the wellness of the students and their condition. And secondly, their learning, okay, and not on grades. Okay, this way, we educators will find more meaning on the feedback we're getting, whether that's formative or summative. So I believe today's situation requires us to really concentrate also on what's important. I think most of us have been finished already with the preparation of materials, resources, okay? And now that we're presented with, and I believe DepEd and will be releasing ways on how we can compute for students' grade, and what we'll have to do in our small groups in the institutions we're in is to gather all creative ideas by which we can concentrate in assessing students' learning. And lastly, for grading. Okay? It has to come last from our priorities. Okay. So I think that would be all. I hope I have been able to give some points to consider, so that we'll be able to be thoughtful assessors of our students' learning in our own or in our respective institution. So with my limited ability, I hope I was able to give a few insights that might help us get through with our preparation for the coming school year. Ms. Kia, there's this particular question sent. Okay. J. Moore, from Sir J. Moore Rubibar. Hi, Madam. Ma'am, I'm a father of two grade schoolers. How can I help them both in their lessons while having two different classes? Lalo na po sa test na difficult readers po sila. Grades 1 and 2 po sa pasukan. Salamat po. Actually, maraming pong mga schools ang nahihirapan, to be honest with you, on how they will conduct also the teaching, especially to grade school in level 1, because it's really a period where parents, or students or pupils get to read. So I think we can ask the institutions where they are enrolled in efforts that they are doing to prepare for the coming school year. Of course, parents are our partners, okay, in their homes, so that they can further help the students, especially in this time. Si Sir Jamar Rubibar, um, may grades 1 and 2 ang mga anak niya, and it's really that difficult. I think, sir, um, if it is asynchronous learning, you can expose your children into some applications, okay. However, it has to be limited. The screen time of our children using iPads, gadgets, that's actually not so good for young children. So at least we give them only some time being exposed to that. But giving them things to do, okay, in supplement with what the school can provide, I think if it is thoughtful and made easier and enjoyable for your kids, I think uh, that will help. Okay, I hope I have answered your questions, Sir Jmar. There, we have to really be creative. Not only teachers, parents also has to be creative, providing at least supplemental materials for their kids, especially at an age that they have to learn how to read and write. You can provide them doodle exercises. There are those that can be downloaded from the internet, and make them learn how to write by following or by tracing a few characters. But it has to really be something that your children will enjoy, so that they will get to be engaged with learning, even if it is play for them. At least they are learning too. Okay, I hope I was able to help, Sir Jmar. Hindi yun hindi yun textbook answer. That's only something that I think might help. Si Ma'am Elisa May Sandola. Ma'am, may way po ba to console yung assessments ng synchronous and asynchronous na wala pong nakakalamang sa kanila, like sa sources and test anxiety? Salamat po. Education really now has to be very inclusive. Kaya I was appealing to all that when, particularly to educators like me, that when we present assessment, it has to have options for the offline, the online, where all will be treated equally. Yes, having internet connection is really something that is not equitable, okay, for all. But at least provide everyone opportunity uh, to give evidence to their learning without the students feeling that they are lacking, or they are given with more privilege because of the presence of the internet. Actually, it is a challenge for us, Ma'am Elisa May. So I think schools will do that. Okay, so don't worry. It's not only us thinking about that. Okay, majority of educators are all educators are thinking that, making assessments inclusive so that the students will not feel that they are not not important. I mean, or they are part of the group who's being assessed this way and the other is assessed that way. Assess them on, the general idea is for the students to be assessed on a way that they can present their learning, whether that's offline, that's online. Okay? That's why performance-based assessment is important. Okay? I think an evidence of a good an evidence of students learning will be that concretely that can they can provide in the form of what they can do from their knowledge, whether that's online or offline. Okay, Elisa Sandola, rest assured that educators like me in the institutions where your children belong, they are thinking of ways on how to make things equitable for the children, especially in providing evidence for their learning. Mm, Sila po ay I think nagtutulungan to provide options for all. Last question po from Ms. Kia, thank you. From Ma'am Lailana Marie C. Lozano. Good evening po, ma'am. Ask ko lang po how we can assist our children establish test moods. Mas gusto po kasi nila ang easy exercises, formative, than the quizzes po na mas need summative things. Kasi there's this idea, the fear is always in the idea that summative is something to be graded. Kaya nga, it's a challenge for us, dear teachers, that formative has to be something enjoyable so that when they take the summative assessment, they do not get the feeling that they are being tested for this and that. Ma'am Leilana Marie, summative assessments actually supposedly is a preparation. The preparation in taking the summative assessment is from the formative assessment. Kaya lang, the problem with the current situation before and currently happening pa rin, is the students gets to be surprised pagka summative assessment na binibigay. Oh, hindi naman ganito kami in-assess during the interval of our classes. Bakit pagdating ng dulo, the assessment is this? And so they get to be fearful already that that's the usual practice. It shouldn't be. Kaya po, it's a challenge to us educators that we make students feel that the testing is not something to be dreaded about. Okay? Kasalanan ng system ng education natin yun. And so there really has to be some changes that has to happen per teacher who's designing the assessment so that we can make a difference sa education type, the system of how we assess the students. It's not only a problem in the Philippines, it's a problem happening around. So Ma'am Leilana Marie, yung mood ng bata in taking the test would rely on how they are enjoying it. Kaya each and every single day that we will do synchronous learning, it has to really be engaging because it's a time for us, their teachers, to talk personally with the students. It's an opportunity to be personal with them. When they read modules, when they look into video, it's something that is impersonal. They see us in video instruction. They see how we instruct them in the module, but that's not personal. So and the challenge for us teachers now is when we do synchronous learning, we really have to be personal with our students, so that as we discuss the lesson and present to them formative assessment, it's as if they're not testing. And so when they enter summative assessment, it would be something na, I'm prepared for this. It's easy, and this is something that I wouldn't be fearful about. So I hope I was able to answer Ma'am Lailano Marisi Lozano. Thank you po. Thank you very much. So I think that was the last, Ma'am Kia. And
Yes.
so I'd like to thank for listening and for taking time to listen. It's a challenge for us educators today, not only to design materials, but most importantly, think of ways on how we can assess our students. From the institution I belong, I must admit we're still struggling in putting everything. And the reason why we're here is to at least ease the burden and make everyone know that you're not alone in this struggle in the preparation for the next school year. We too are struggling, and we'd like to just share a few things that might help you, things that we might be doing that at least you might also do in your own school. Our president would always say, this time of pandemic, there's no expert person to to say this works and that works. Okay, so no one is expert in this condition. So what is important is we extend help to everyone, and I hope webinars are helping us to be able to at least get some ideas, some strategies that we can actually do in our own institutions. Parents, rest assured that hindi na po kami natutulog. We want the learning experience of your sons and daughters be meaningful as well for this coming school year. This might be a different time, a different period, different, difficult, yet it has to be something also that might really be an opportunity for us to be able to present learning to students by which it will be much enjoyable for them, considering their safety. Thank you very much, Vibal, for giving me this opportunity.
Okay po, there we have it. Thank you very much, Ma'am Liza, for the very insightful session this evening. Before po tayo mag-end ng ating session, do you have any final reminders or words of wisdom for our viewers for tonight? Hello po, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes po.
Hi,
Ma'am,
hello. Yes.
apo, before we end the session, ma'am, do
Yes.
you have any final reminders po for our viewers tonight?
To our viewers, especially to the parents, just like what I have mentioned earlier, um, helping out your children at home is important. But um, please do not be burdened with the idea on how you will be helping out fully, because we teachers and the schools will be helping out, of course. It's not them giving you the burden in teaching your children. Rest assured that Filipino educators are really working hard to deliver better education, and that the assessments that we will provide to your children are something that will reveal evidences of their learning. So it may not be the usual testing that we do in the classroom, but rest assured that schools are gearing into preparing assessments that will really reveal the, the learning that has to be shown even if your children are at home. So with that, thank you very much, Ms. Kia. To our viewers, thank you very much.
Okay po, there we have it. Thank you very much, Ma'am Liza. And of course, in behalf of Vibal Group Incorporated, maraming salamat po for imparting your knowledge to our parent and teacher viewers for tonight. And of course, maraming salamat din po sa ating viewers. Sana po magkita-kita pa tayo sa ating mga susunod na Learn at Home session. Muli po, magandang gabi at maraming salamat sa ating lahat.